With the sun peeking through the trees and the soft sound of waves rippling around the rocks, standing on the shore of Fort Armistead,
beautiful, it's relaxing.
But looking toward the Baltimore skyline,
it's a little bit haunting to see the roadway and then it just stops and there's nothing there.
With the concrete pillars still standing and a road that suddenly ends, the gaping hole of where the Francis Scott Key Bridge once stood is a reminder of the landmark and the lives that were lost 1 year ago.
The tragedy of it all, the fact that so many lives have been forever changed.
Lives like Maria del Carmen Castellan and Bartelia Berenice Martinez Funes.
Yo nunca me imaginaría que un barco derribaría un puente.
I never thought that a boat could bring down a bridge.
Nunca.
Never.
Y él dijo, Minor cayó del puente.
And he said, Minor fell from the bridge.
Y no lo encuentra.
And they can't find him.
Entonces en ese momento,
Then that moment,
yo me volví como loca y empecé a gritar en mi apartamento.
I just lost it and I started to scream in the apartment.
Their husbands were part of the construction crew working on the bridge the night it came crumbling down on March 26, 2024.
Nunca va a ser igual.
It will never be the same.
Nunca.
Never.
Porque te quitaron un esposo,
Because you lost a husband,
un compañero, un amigo.
companion, a friend.
Teníamos sueños.
We had dreams.
The Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsing into the water. This happening just around 1:30 this morning.
The whole bridge just fell down.
It was hit by a container ship.
We know 6 people are still unaccounted for.
Era un caos para nosotros como familia.
It was a chaos to us as a family. Everything was in chaos.
The search and recovery efforts, they continue here on the east side in Dundalk today. And I've got to tell you, the weather here has made it certainly less than ideal conditions.
Y yo pasé mucho tiempo esperando que él llegara a mi casa.
And I spent a lot of time waiting for him to come home.
That at this point, we do not believe that we're going to find any of these individuals still alive.
This is an unthinkable and unspeakable tragedy.
They were filling potholes. They had no idea that this was going to be a deadly mission.
Es un dolor que uno no lo quisiera ni experimentar.
It's a very, very painful pain no one should experience.
But to tell this story, we first have to rewind to Sunday, March 24th, 2 days before the Key Bridge collapsed. Sitting side by side with Bishop Angel Nunez of the bilingual church in Baltimore, who was translating, Maria and Bertalia say it was a Sunday that started like any other. Maria, who shared 14 years of her life with her husband, Miguel Angel Luna, says while she planned on going to church that day,
Y algo me llegó a mi mente y yo dije,
Something came to my mind and I said,
Dios, perdóname por no ir a la iglesia hoy día.
Lord, forgive me for not attending church today.
Pero yo le dije así en mi mente al Señor, yo quiero compartir este día con mi esposo.
But I said in my mind, in prayer, I said, Lord, I want to share this day with him, with my husband.
So they spent the day eating, shopping, and running errands together.
Me sentí privilegiada.
I felt very privileged.
Sin pensar que era el día domingo completo que lo iba a compartir con él.
To think that I'm going to have the entire day of Sunday to be with him.
With Maria running a successful food truck, that day they even stopped by a place they hoped to rent, peering into the windows, planning to open a restaurant together.
Era nuestro sueño.
It was our dream.
Bertalia was married to Maynor Yasir Suazo Sandoval. They were together for 11 years.
Un poco gordito.
He was a little chunky guy.
Todo el tiempo siempre andaba como muy motivado y todo el tiempo decía que quería bajar de peso.
He was very motivated and he always was saying that he got to lose some weight.
Y todo el tiempo andaba en el gimnasio.
And all the time he was spending a lot of time at the gym.
Y siempre me decía que lo acompañara.
And he always used to tell me, come on, come with me.
And while she normally didn't like to go to the gym,
Y ese domingo él me dijo que lo acompañara.
And that Sunday he told me, come on, please go with me.
Y yo de repente, así de la nada, yo dije, sí,
And I
está
said,
bien, te acompaño.
and I said, yeah, okay, I'll go with you.
but on their way home, she says Maynor took her hand.
Y dijo él, yo quiero que sepas que soy muy feliz a tu lado.
And he said, I want you to know that I am very happy being next to you.
Quiero darte gracias a ti y a Dios por haberme dado una hija tan hermosa.
I want to thank you and God for giving me such a beautiful daughter.
Y quiero que sepas que pase lo que pase,
And I want you to know that whatever happens,
siempre voy a estar contigo.
I will always be with you.
As the hours passed and the evening came, both men who were working the night shift, doing construction work for the company Bronner Builders, prepared for their week ahead. Sunday night into Monday, it was business as usual. The men went to work and came home. But heading into work Monday night, Maria prepared dinner for Miguel.
Como a las 6:45,
Around 6:45,
él recogió su cena.
he picked up his dinner.
Fue la última vez que lo vi.
Was the last time I saw him.
Nunca pensé que fuera la última vez.
And I never thought that that was going to be the last time.
Pero tuve la bendición
But I had the blessing
de que se despidió con un beso de mi persona.
that he said goodbye with a kiss to me.
Picking up the phone Monday evening, Bertalia says Maynor called her.
Solo llamaba para decirte que te amo mucho.
I just wanted to call you to tell you how much I love you.
Dile a Alexa que la amo con todo mi corazón.
Tell Alexa that I love her with all of my heart.
Maynor ending their conversation with,
Y cuídense, nos vemos mañana.
And take care. I'll see you
Primeramente
tomorrow.
Dios.
I'll see you tomorrow, God willing.
Y el siguiente día no llegó.
And he never made it back.
The whole bridge just fell down. Start, whoever, everybody. The whole bridge just collapsed.
On March 26, 2024, in the dark of night, around 12:40 Tuesday morning, the cargo ship Dali was pulled away from the dock, starting to leave the Port of Baltimore. A nearly 1,000-foot container ship, roughly the size of the Eiffel Tower. It was a routine trip heading to Sri Lanka. But as the cargo ship was inching toward the Key Bridge, the trip became anything but routine.
Dude, this is fucking bad.
Around 1:25 a.m., when the Dali was just over half a mile, or 3 ship lengths away from the bridge, electrical breakers unexpectedly tripped, causing a blackout. With pumps losing power, the rudder couldn't be moved, meaning steering the ship quickly became a struggle. About a minute and a half later, the ship's pilot called for tugboats, the first sign of needing help. About 20 seconds later, around 1:27, the ship pilot ordered for the anchor to be dropped. They made calls to police, reporting the Dali lost power. And while the crew was able to momentarily get the power back on, a second blackout happened, just yards away from the bridge. Those moments caught on camera as the lights of the ship start flickering before going dark.
I need one of you guys on the south side, one of you guys on the north side, hold all traffic on the Key Bridge. There's a ship approaching. It just lost their steering.
At the same time, as a major thoroughfare in Baltimore, even around 1 a.m., cars were passing over the Key Bridge, and a crew of 8 was hard at work, filling potholes and doing routine maintenance work. With police already stationed on each side of the bridge because of that construction work, about a minute after getting the call the Dali lost power, officers quickly jumped into action, stopping traffic.
I'm not sure where. There's a crew up there. You might want to notify whoever the foreman is, see if we can get them off the bridge temporarily.
But at 1:29, the Dali hit the Key Bridge, quickly collapsing.
I've spoken to these officers, and they each told me that they had approximately 25 to 30 cars behind them. That's almost 60 people that would have been on that bridge and fallen in the water had they not stopped the traffic.
Only about 2 minutes separated the moment when police were first called to when the bridge came crashing down.
It sounded like thunder or jet flying overhead. It lasted 20-25 seconds, and then it abruptly stopped.
Andrew Middleton, the director of Apostleship of the Seas, an organization that works with seafarers, lives nearby. It's a bridge he's passed over thousands of times.
Disbelief, shock. It's just something that I never thought would happen, and then to know that the Key Bridge no longer was standing was really shocking to me.
While one worker on the bridge, an inspector, was able to make it to safety, all because he happened to make a seemingly insignificant decision.
He just made a decision not to go back to his car, to get something to eat.
That inspector was able to run away, but the other 7 workers weren't as lucky. They were in their vehicles falling with the bridge. They didn't get the message in time.
Nunca lo creía.
I could never believe it.
Yo deseaba tener alas y llegar y sacar a mi esposo de ahí.
I wish I had wings that I can go down there and pull him out.
This body camera footage showing a barrage of flashing lights filling Fort Armistead.
Justo en el momento cuando nos llegamos al lugar donde nos tuvieron en espera.
Where, just as we arrived to the place where they had us waiting,
Había muchos carros de policía.
there was a lot of police cars,
Había muchos carros de bomberos.
a lot of fire trucks,
Pero nos tenían ahí en una espera.
but they had us there just waiting.
Pero es bien difícil.
It's very difficult.
And first responders peering out onto the Patapsco River, stunned by the scene unfolding in front of them.
I mean, that's the Key Bridge.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. I mean, the bridge is still on the boat.
Divers jumping into the water say they could hear the sound of the steel still moving.
Big, loud, hollow, kind of chunky sound that we all were just very aware that this was like, something really surreal.
Getting into the water of course was cold, but as soon as you went subsurface, it became almost pitch black. The asphalt and the concrete from the bridge itself had been pulverized into a powder.
There were still lights from some of the emergency vehicles that had gone under that you could see the glow coming up through the water.
One of the 7 construction workers was able to free himself from his truck.
Bringing the victim in now. They rescued him out of the water.
This was the moment he was rescued after miraculously surviving the fall.
Search up here in the bridge with our kick and visually. We're clear of any other.
But the other 6 men were nowhere to be found, among them Miguel and Menor, their family members getting woken up by the news, furiously rushing to the scene.
Y al llegar a ese lugar me sentí más mal de lo que ya me sentía,
And when I got there, I felt even worse than I was feeling beforehand.
porque podía sentir el dolor
Because I could feel the pain
que había en esa habitación.
that was in that room.
Habían hermanos,
There were brothers,
hijos,
children,
madres
mothers,
y esposas,
and wives.
y todos lloraban demasiado.
And everyone was crying desperately.
Era duro recibir esa noticia,
It's very hard to receive that news
porque ellos cada ciertas horas nos daban reportes
because every few hours they would give us a report
y ellos decían que los estaban buscando por agua,
and they would tell us that they're looking through the waters, they're looking for them.
As the day drug on,
And for everyone who is offering prayers and supports, I can tell you those prayers are working and we are grateful.
an emergency crews combed the waters, navigating the mass of twisted steel and concrete that plunged into the water.
A search and rescue is still underway, so we are very hopeful.
Right now, this is about the lives of those individuals that we are searching for and nothing else.
Did you have hope that maybe he could still be alive at that point?
Llegó un amigo de mi esposo justo ese día, ahí en la mañana,
There was a friend of my husband that did show up that morning,
y me dio una esperanza, él de aliento,
and he gave me a word of hope.
y me dijo,
And he said,
tranquila,
be calm.
él podía nadar.
He knows how to swim.
Y yo en mi corazón yo deseaba que fuera real, que él hubiera podido lograr salir de ahí con vida.
And in my heart I said, oh man, I wish that's possible, that he would be able to come out alive from this.
Pero conforme iban pasando las horas,
But as the hours kept on going by,
Las noticias no eran buenas.
News was not good.
But as the daylight faded away, so was the hope the missing men would be found alive.
This evening at about 7:30, we are going to suspend the active search and rescue efforts. We're going away from the search and rescue portion to a recovery operation. The changing conditions out there have made it dangerous for the first responders.
Well, given the amount of time the victims have been in the water and just how cold the water is, officials with the Coast Guard say they don't believe they'll find any of the missing construction workers alive, but they say they'll do everything in their power to bring the victims' families closure.
It's a really heartbreaking conclusion to a challenging day.
The 6 victims presumed dead.
Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes, Jose Lopez, Dorleon Castillo Cabrera, Menor Yacir Suazo Sandoval, Carlos Daniel Hernandez Estrella, and Miguel Angel Luna Gonzalez.
It's just a terrible tragedy that nobody could have foreseen.
Bronner Builder executive Jeffrey Pritzker said their hard work will be remembered.
They're all wonderful employees, good employees, and it's really a heartbreaking loss to Bronner Builders.
Along with the legacy of their lives, Miguel is described as an intelligent man who is dedicated to his family.
Mi esposo era el mejor esposo
My husband was the best husband
que Dios me pudo permitir.
that God would allow me to have.
And Menor,
La verdad, un buen ser humano.
He was a good person. He was a real, true human being, real good human being.
Fue un muy buen esposo,
He was a very good husband also,
un muy buen padre,
and a good father,
un buen hijo.
and even a son.
along with others, fathers, sons, brothers, husbands, and community members, all loved and revered.
All with you?
We are all with you.
We are all with you?
We are all with you.
Right here?
Right here.
Right now?
Right now.
And always.
And always.
Right here?
Right here.
Right now?
Right now.
And always.
And always.
Uniting the community in grief.
Here, we are reminded once again about the enormous contribution that the immigrants made to this country. How together, we U.S. border workers, we build this country.
But as the sun came up March 27th, with local, state, and federal agencies responding, the chaos was far from over.
Officials now firmly believe the missing vehicles are encased in the superstructure of the cement.
The divers still searching, jumping into the Patapsco River without hesitation.
It's a little disorienting being underwater, not being able to see, and just feeling rebar and not knowing what you're about to get into.
Even though it wasn't clear what was lurking under the water.
I got a snag on the comms line, which is typical, especially in a high debris environment. So I followed back my snag, and I was actually snagged on the trailer that the red truck was towing.
Heart rate was up, just tried to remain calm and search the vehicle as best as possible and just do what we've been trained to do.
Shortly before 10 a.m., divers located a red pickup truck submerged in approximately 25 feet of water in the area of the middle span of the bridge. Divers recovered two victims of this tragedy trapped within the vehicle.
Think about the workers. You know, they were just trying to feed their families, trying to make an honest living, and it's very disheartening that they had to be involved in that accident.
An accident not only taking their lives, but in an instant, the bridge connecting the region was gone. The Port of Baltimore was shut down.
The port's the economic engine for the state. It's a driver.
Threatening the livelihood of more than 15,000 port workers, with another nearly 140,000 jobs linked to the port. The wreckage in the water stopping all traffic in and out.
It's about $192 million of lost economic impact on a daily basis.
I knew right away that this was catastrophic and it would cause a lot of damage.
Working at the port for 23 years, Damian Tucker was a crane operator.
Once all the containers are moved, exports and imports, we have no more work.
And without work,
we have no idea how we're going to make it from week to week because we depend on our checks every Friday to get paid. And at the end of the day, we still have to find a way to be able to feed our families.
But even in the midst of feeling those fears,
all we're really concerned about right now is finding the 6 individuals that may be still in the water, maybe trapped under some rubble.
with a major port suddenly brought to a standstill.
We will support Maryland and Baltimore every step of the way.
Well, lawmakers in Annapolis are racing to put together a plan to help employees impacted by the port's closure. They're working on an emergency bill to help thousands of direct and indirect port workers.
Up close to the wreckage, the magnitude of what happened was front and center. The sheer size of the Dali and the roadway still sitting on top of the ship. The steel that once held up to heavy traffic left mangled, looking like spaghetti. 50,000 tons of wreckage, most of it sitting below the surface.
The work that's taking place is very dangerous, very complex, in an unforgiving environment.
A lot of sharp objects underwater, and the divers are not going to be able to see, so you're going to be working by feel.
The Dali and several other ships still in the port were stuck.
On all the vessels that have been stuck here, there are crew members that are on board.
Andrew Middleton with the Apostleship of the Seas met with the 20-person crew of the Dali before they tried to leave, helping them get supplies. With the steel now separating them,
the main concern was mental health of the Dali crew.
At the same time, outside of Fort Armistead, this memorial was growing. Candles, crosses, and construction vests, honoring the missing men. The memorial becoming a place for community members to gather, a place that was full of life in the midst of life that was lost. And on the other side of where the bridge once stood, a few flowers lined the road as people huddled together along the highway.
His heart goes out to the ones that lost family.
Gathering to grieve the lives cut too short.
Everybody say,
And at vigils, reflective gear and the men they represented, lighting the way as those honoring them took steps in solidarity. As the days stretched on to weeks, the challenges only mounted.
You see links of chain that are size of a human's upper body. You see trusses that are as big around as a tree trunk.
Despite crews relentlessly working around the clock, the recovery mission was slow.
This operation started 3 weeks ago, and in total, we have moved around 1,100 tons of steel.
Well, I was last out at the Key Bridge about a week and a half ago, and compared to what I saw today on the water, crews have made a significant amount of progress.
Proud to share that we are actively removing yet another large section from the waterway. I believe we're rigging it up right now. So we're excited about this work. This is great news as it keeps us on track.
The victims, one by one, were coming home.
11 días fueron demasiado tiempo.
It was too long, 11 days.
En la que se vivió mucha desesperación, mucha incertidumbre.
Well, we were just living desperately, uncertain.
Y no moría esa esperanza.
And that hope had not died.
De pensar que mi esposo iba a llegar.
To think that my husband would have made it.
When did it hit you that he wasn't going to come home?
No sé, porque en realidad el tiempo pasó.
I really can't tell you because time just dragged on.
E incluso todavía hay momentos en los que pienso.
And there are times, even now, that I think
que un día él va a volver.
That one day he'll come back.
How long did it take for them to find your husband?
Mi esposo, fue dura la espera, la verdad, para mí y para su familia.
It was very hard for us to wait, him and his family.
Tuvimos que esperar 35 días.
35 days we had to wait.
How do you describe waiting for 35 days?
¿Y cómo tú describes esperar 35 días?
Es lo más difícil.
Was the most difficult thing.
Es lo más difícil. No poder dormir.
You couldn't sleep.
Te haces tantas preguntas.
You question yourself so many times.
To help in the cleanup, large cranes moved the massive pieces of debris to the nearby Sparrows Point.
From this spot at Trade Point Atlantic, you can get a good glimpse of the Key Bridge and the wreckage that's still there. Once debris is pulled from the water, it's then put on a barge and brought over here to Sparrows Point, where you have parts of the bridge like that are then broken down into smaller pieces.
A glimpse of the progress.
Mixed emotions, but also knowing that we're on a path to recovery.
To open limited access to the port inside of 30 days is remarkable.
Then in May, once again standing on the shore of Fort Armistead, the silence speaking volumes. A controlled demolition finally helped free the Dali after being stuck sitting on the river since March. This was the moment the ship was finally moved.
We are on schedule. We are going to make this commitment that we made to the president, to Governor Moore, and to the people of Maryland.
But as the last of the steel was being brought to the surface, so were the deficiencies with the Dali.
Crew members have been participating and fully cooperating from day one with the authorities.
Officials with the National Transportation Safety Board say the Dali experienced a total of 4 power outages.
2 of them happening about 10 hours before the Dali left the port on March 25th. Those were related to routine maintenance. The other 2 happened the next day, right before the Dali hit the Key Bridge, when there were unexpected issues with circuit breakers, meaning the Dali was essentially drifting moments before hitting the bridge.
Yes, the night before I was working, I ended up working 15 hours on that vessel, driving the crane, operating the crane. I was radioed up from the reefer mechanic and some of the longshoremen on the ship that was lashing containers that night, that they were having electrical problems, keeping the reefers plugged in, well, not plugged in, but getting power to the reefers.
Something port worker Damian Tucker says in his experience rarely happens to the refrigerated containers.
Desde el momento que pasó eso, yo siempre he pensado
From the moment that happened, I always thought
que ese barco nunca debió salir.
that boat should have never left the pier.
Que para hacer el trabajo que ellos hacen,
To do the work that they do,
tenían que estar bien inspeccionados
it should have been very well inspected
y estar seguro del trabajo que ellos estaban haciendo
and be sure of the work that they were doing,
para no arriesgar su vida
to not risk their lives
y las demás personas.
and the lives of others.
In a lawsuit, the Department of Justice said the owner and operator of the Dali were aware of issues on the ship that could cause power outages. But instead of taking necessary precautions, it's alleged they did the opposite. The DOJ saying out of negligence, mismanagement, and at times a desire to cut costs, they configured the ship's electrical and mechanical systems in a way that prevented them from being able to quickly restore propulsion and steering after an outage. They say as a result, when the Dali lost power, a cascading set of failures led to disaster.
Grace Ocean, Limited, and Synergy Marine failed. And their failure resulted in one of the most catastrophic and preventable maritime disasters in Maryland history.
Maryland state officials also say the ship's owner and manager were negligent. Another lawsuit filed saying they failed to correct the issues from the outages before leaving port. They say the power failure was caused by a vibration problem, causing damage to the transformers and switchboards, including nuts and bolts coming loose and falling out. They also say the equipment intended to automatically restore power didn't work as it was designed because the ship's management and crew intentionally circumvented critical safety features. Unsafe conditions the state alleges had been present for many months.
They failed even to inform the U.S. Coast Guard, as the law required, or to warn the pilots who boarded the Dali to help it leave the Port of Baltimore.
The state's complaint pointing to this picture, showing an improvised rig used to soften vibrations from one of the Dali's transformers. Those vibrations so severe, an independent contractor refused to conduct testing on the switchboard due to safety concerns.
Collapsed.
But because of the stunning mismanagement, disinterest, or incompetence of the owner and operator of the Dali, those backup systems failed. They failed to make sure the ship was seaworthy.
With a slew of other lawsuits stacking up,
I purposely have never asked the crew about the incident.
Middleton, who is still in contact with some of the crew, says the courts will have a lot to decide.
And I don't think anyone, set sail with the intention of causing damage or loss of life.
He says the crew of the Dali also feels the weight of the wreckage they caused.
They mourn, the loss of life as well. On May 1st of last year, Bishop Parker and I had the privilege of going out to the Dali to visit with the crew, and Bishop Parker was able to celebrate Mass. And during the Mass, he remembered the 6 bridge workers. And something that struck me was after we had concluded the Mass, one of the crew members wanted to look at the list of names. And he said he wanted to be able to remember them in his prayers by name.
He says even now some of the crew members are still in Baltimore as the legal battle plays out.
Some of them haven't seen family in probably close to 18 months, if not longer, depending upon when they signed on to the vessel prior to arriving here.
But in a bombshell announcement, Jennifer Hamady, the chair of the NTSB, says the state failed to perform a vulnerability assessment on the Key Bridge, an assessment calculating the risk and how likely a bridge collapse could be if a ship hits it.
Had they ran the calculation on the Francis Scott Key Bridge, the MDTA would have been aware that the bridge was almost 30 times greater than the risk threshold.
Hamady says had the state and the Maryland Transportation Authority followed the long-standing guidelines that have been around since the 90s, guidelines state officials at the time helped establish.
Based on recent vessel traffic, the MDTA would have been able to proactively identify strategies to reduce the risk of a collapse and loss of lives associated with a vessel collision with the bridge.
The Dali was a sizable cargo ship, so had the MDTA conducted this assessment, could they have put measures in place you believe could have prevented this collapse, and if so, what types of measures would those have been?
Yeah, so these bridge owners need to be looking at recent vessel traffic. Things have changed over time. Vessels have gotten bigger, heavier. So yes, MDTA would have known the risk and could have taken action to safeguard the Key Bridge.
Do you think that collapse could have been prevented, though?
Had they done that, the collapse could have been prevented.
But the Maryland Transportation Authority maintaining the catastrophe and the tragic loss of life was the sole fault of the Dali and the gross negligence of her owners and operators who put profits above safety.
Yeah, I was surprised by the report. It's certainly not at all what we had been hearing for the last year about the Herculean efforts by the state, local governments, and federal government to respond to what was very clearly a singularly caused incident, which was the Dali hitting the structure. For 50 years, we did not have anything remotely close to that. And so, this was a horrific accident that was caused entirely by a ship running into the pier. This is not the state's responsibility for a ship having a malfunction. I do not believe that this was negligence on the state's part.
Even in the grief and the questions that remain, along the way this past year, there have been signs of hope.
Whenever there is a tragedy, we come together.
From restaurants donating food to first responders right after the collapse, to fundraisers for port workers and the families of the victims, the state approving millions in funding to help those who were out of work, the first ships passing through the cleared channels, and the Port of Baltimore reopening.
And instead of 11 months, we got this thing done in 11 weeks.
As the Port of Baltimore has made significant strides toward recovering, Congress has approved federal funds to rebuild the bridge. And the years-long process to build it has started. The new bridge, which will look like this, is expected to open in 2028.
For the community, the reopening of the bridge would be a symbol of hope. That one incident, even though it affects your life so greatly, that you can always, rise above that challenge.
And even though the community has held this tragedy close to their hearts throughout the year, remembering the men who died in both big ways and small ways for the families.
Y es algo que pues nos ha marcado.
It has really marked us.
A year later, the wounds are still fresh.
Sí, la verdad que sí, es algo que está en el corazón.
It is true. It is something that is in my heart.
Porque esa tragedia
Because that tragedy
rompió el corazón de muchas familias,
broke the hearts of many families,
en especial de sus esposas,
especially the wives,
sus hijos
the children,
y toda la familia.
and all of the family.
Even as life seemingly moves on.
Ha sido muy difícil,
Has been very difficult,
muy duro.
very hard.
No es fácil como sobrellevar tú sola un hogar
It's not easy to take on the load of a home
que antes no dependía solamente de ti.
that before it was not just depending on you.
And milestones like birthdays come around again, like for Maynor's young daughter.
Fue difícil para las dos porque ella decía que quería celebrar el cumpleaños con su papá.
It was difficult for both of us, and she kept on saying that she wanted to celebrate her birthday with her daddy.
Y decía que íbamos a comprar un pastel donde estuviera la imagen de él.
And she wanted us to buy a cake that had his image on it,
Para decir que estaba con su papá.
just to be able to say that she was with her father.
Que lo recordaran como un gran ser humano.
Just remember him as a great human being.
They're asking to never be forgotten. As Maria honors the memory of her husband Miguel, she's still working toward their dream of owning a restaurant.
Ese es mi sueño.
That is my dream.
Sí, trabajaré duro
Work hard
para lograrlo.
to accomplish it.
Y siempre tengo en mente
And I always have in mind
la memoria de él
his memory
a través de los sueños que estábamos planificando.
through the dreams that we had planned together.
No hay una cosa
There is not one thing
que yo no toque de la lonchera
that I don't touch in my vehicle
que no esté la presencia de él.
that his presence is not there with me.
Telling him one more thing.
Que siempre lo voy a extrañar.
Que siempre que
Lo voy a extrañar siempre.
I will always miss you.